Hello and welcome to this video on investment. So we're going to look at what is meant by gross and net investment and then look at the main influences on the level of investment. But let's start off with what is investment. Well, investment is spending on what we would call capital goods. Now, capital goods are things like new factories and other buildings, plant and machinery, and plant is a word sometimes used for things like equipment that a business might use to produce products. Spending on new technology, maybe spending on things like vehicles, and spending on stock, so parts, inventory that might get used to turn into a final good. So any spending on those capital goods, things that help us to produce more consumer goods in the future, we call investment. Primarily, most investment is done by private sector businesses, but state investment can also be important. So private sector businesses normally account for 75% of investment, and the state occasionally do build factories and buildings for businesses to use. So what is this difference between gross and net investment? Well, gross investment is the total spending on new capital goods. But what is important to recognize is things like machinery and factories do tend to go down in value over time due to sort of general wear and tear and need maintaining. And that decrease in value we call depreciation. So if an asset or a machine depreciates, its value goes down over time due to wear and tear. For example, if you buy a new car, it'd be worth £10,000. 2 years later, due to wear and tear, it might be only worth £6,000. So that is depreciation. The value of the asset's gone down. So whether or not the capital stock, the amount of capital goods, goes up and down over time depends whether gross investment, total spending, has a greater impact than the depreciation that's taking place on the machines. So for example, if capital depreciation, if the capital stock in the country went down by 100 million and only 90 million was spent on new capital or replacing that capital, the net effect here would actually be a reduction in the size of the capital stock, the value of the machinery and tools and etc. So there would actually be negative net investment. There hasn't been investment, things have got worse because the depreciation of our assets outweighed the gross investment. However, if we spend 200 million on new machinery, new vehicles, new stock, and the existing stock only depreciates by 50 million, then we would have a net investment effect positive of 150 million in the economy. So if gross investment is higher than depreciation, net investment is positive, and the size of the capital stock, the value of the capital goods in the economy, the value of factory, plant, equipment, machinery, vehicles, all that stuff will grow. So a quick reminder, gross investment is spending on new capital inputs and goods. It's the total amount the economy spends on new capital, whereas net investment is gross investment, and then we adjust for depreciation, adjust for the fact that some assets each year are worn down and need to be replaced. So what might influence the level of investment within the economy? Well, the rate of economic growth will influence the rate of investment because that will have a link to how many goods businesses expect they will need to be able to make. And the more they need to be able to make, the more capital machinery they need, the higher the level of investment. Business expectations and confidence will have a big impact on investment. So if businesses are confident that there will be the demand in the future for the products, then there is an incentive to invest. If businesses lack confidence, they're uncertain about the level of demand in the future and how strong the economy will be, then they're less likely to invest. This links closely with the concept coined by the economist John Maynard Keynes, who talked of business investment being determined by animal spirits. So not necessarily as kind of a logical approach to decision making, but kind of more of an emotional reaction about what the future outlook for the economy is. The demand for exports may have an influence. The greater the demand for exports, the higher perhaps the levels of investment that are required. Interest rates has an important impact on investment because for many businesses they invest by borrowing money, and if the interest rate is low, it makes borrowing more attractive, and therefore there might be more investment. Linked to this is the access to credit. So regardless of the rate of interest, are they actually able? Will the banks or financial institutions lend to them? If there is easy access to credit, lots of businesses can borrow, then there is likely to be more investment. The government may influence the level of investment either through doing their own state investment on capital and machinery, or perhaps subsidizing businesses to make investments. And lastly, there may be regulations. So perhaps if there are strict building regulations on new factories, for example, this might have an impact on the level of investment that takes place. So what would be the implications for an economy of a rise of investment? Well, the advantages might be a high level of aggregate demand because investment is an injection into the circular flow and is a component of aggregate demand. However, some of the investment might be imported parts as part of the investment project, which might be a leakage from the circular flow. Another advantage is that new machinery, new capital, new technology can boost productivity and create additional capacity to supply products in the economy. However, there might be a time lag between workers getting more capital and productivity rising. There may also be the replacement of workers with capital, which would undo that advantage. Another advantage of investment is that it creates extra demand for those firms that provide the machines or the tools to those businesses, and this can lead to a strong multiplier effect on the level of GDP. Again, there's an evaluation point here that capital investment might replace labour, might cause some short-term unemployment. Investment might boost a country's competitiveness because with new technologies and new machineries and better productivity, then businesses should be able to produce their products at a cheaper price and attract more demand for exports. This therefore might improve the trade balance. Having said that, many other factors affect competitiveness. For example, the level of the exchange rate. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much.